The baseball scene in Twilight was a cultural reset, and I think it led to a lot of people's self-discovery, and I don't think that we talk about that enough. Hello, babes. We both know why you're here. Okay, Twilight. The beloved 4-book series or saga, because I guess that's 4 books. I've found that you either love it or you hate it. I'm here to tell you today why people like Twilight, why people enjoy and rewatch Twilight. It's never gonna not be that girl. It's never gonna not be popular or rewatched every year or gushed about amongst middle-aged women and teenage girls. That's just how it's always going to be, and I'm going to tell you why. If my voice sounds a little off, I just had COVID and I'm recovering still. I got this little cough going on. But it's like making my voice have a little bit of a vocal fry, and I hate that. And I'm apologizing beforehand, just so we know between us mutually what's going on. Twilight is so bad, but it's so undeniably interesting and grotesque that like you can't seem to take your eyes off of it when you're watching it. It's got this certain factor to it, which in a way kind of makes it a masterpiece. And I'm not even gonna sit here and joke with you. I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say that I don't enjoy it, because I do. I eat it up every single time that I watch it. If you are yourself a teenage girl or were once a teenage girl, you probably were obsessed at one point of your in your life with Twilight, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, there is so much voice crack. What? There's so much wrong with the premise, but that is not the point. Okay? The point is so much fundamentally wrong with it. Plus, it is essentially a fantasy Wattpad trope that was made into a book that was then made into a movie, and I think that that is truly why the mentally ill find solace in these films, because they are not realistic anyway at all. Let's be so for real for a minute. Who wants realism? I want dragons. I want magic. I want vampires and werewolves. I want a love potion, maybe. A castle. Some gray skies. Some rain. Give me fantasy or I don't want it. Give me fantasy or I don't want it. And if you're that girl, I'm here to tell you that you're gonna love this video. Twilight does not capture the heart of millions of teenage girls and middle-aged women because it is normal, or plays it safe. The melodrama of the weird and the dark mixed with the obsessed and in love in a fantasy world. Come on, man. I'm gonna eat it up every time, and I'm not even gonna apologize about it. I'm gonna eat it up every single time. Why is it so beloved, even though it's so awful? Will it stand the test of time? I'm so glad that you asked. I'm here to inform you that yes it will, and I'm going to explain why. I have 1 DC when you can have 2. Moving on. What I will be reviewing in this video today, why it's so bad that it's somehow good. Yes, it's awful, but that is exactly why it's good. The wolf-vampire dynamic. Self-explanatory. The beloved love triangle. You either hate it or you love it, but in this story it somehow works. The general aesthetic of the film. Need I say more? And it's not realistic. And that's the true closer right there. Because why does anyone like fantasy? Because it's not real life. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. It's so bad that it's good. You might be saying, what do you even mean by that? I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you. Watching a movie and then laughing during a scene that you know you weren't supposed to laugh at is evidence enough. The acting gets flamed all the time because of how cringy it is, how mumbly, I guess, like the lines are said, but to be completely fair with you, that is exactly how the characters are written in the book. And contrary to popular belief, if you have not read the books, Bella is just as annoying and just as good at making bad decisions with her inner monologue included on paper than without. It doesn't help her case, it just makes her look like more of an idiot most of the time. Movies actually make her more interesting, to be honest, and less incompetent. The overall conflict of these books and these movies is as follows. Edward Cullen is a 100-year-old virgin vampire. Bella is a hormonal, angsty teenager who wants to be nasty with him all the time, also wants to be immortal. That's really it. The story would not be as interesting if the acting was like better or written differently, at least in my opinion. Also, side note, real time for a second, let's pause. Why was the doll even created? Who thought it would be a better idea over a live baby? And the truth is that they still didn't even use a live baby. They CGI'd a baby. Y'all, it's not like the baby's gotta talk. It's not like the baby's gotta do a trick. It's gotta like have superpowers. It just sits there. Why did they not get a baby? Thank God they did not use that thing. The viewership of those movies would plummet. Or maybe they'd rise actually because of how terrifying it is. Maybe it would be like considered a horror film at that point. The writing choices are also just so weird. Like, Loca, come on. Come on, bro. Also, another thing that always pissed me off was Bella was meeting the vamp fam for the first time. Esme goes, "We're making Italiano for you." What? Be absolutely so for real. The writers really said, let me add an O at the end of it just to piss them off. Let's put their panties in a twist over that. Let us twist their panties ourselves with our bare hands. Truly. And another thing while we're at it, why did Bella call her dad by his first name? If I would have done that, no dinner for 4 days. No dinner for 4 days. If I called my father by his first name, if I called my mother by her first name, goodbye. Goodbye any social life that I ever had. It honestly does not matter if Twilight was meant to be weird or if it happened by mistake. There's no world that exists where the ridiculous events that happen in Twilight are ever considered good. The characters in this story are fueled on absolute teenage desire and impulse. That is the narrative of the entire story and every decision made. Hormonal teenagers making awful decisions. It kind of makes sense in that frame of thinking. Being written as teenagers means that none of it is going to be logical in nature. Yes, there's so many reasons to make fun of it, and I make fun of it all the time, but to be frank, it has the renowned honor of being unlike anything we have, which makes it good, or at least different or special. You catch my drift? I could go one by one about all of the cringy and painful to watch scenes of this movie, but I will be here for days because that is the entirety of Twilight. It's all cringy. My favorite movie of the saga is Eclipse, I think. And it's simply because the werewolves and the vampires had to fight with each other against evil overhead that wants them both dead. They had virtually no choice but to work together and protect themselves and Bella from the Volturi. Watching them form some sort of relationship with each other while they simultaneously hate each other went hard. It went hard. That was always the most excited that I was when watching the movie, is whenever they had to work together. Am I looking Twilight core? I think Twilight was the creator, or at least the main inspiration for the hot supernatural creature fad of the early 2010s. Shows like The Vampire Diaries, Teen Wolf, Being Human, all came after like the book's success. So like the wolf vampire fantasy dynamic not only adds to the plot and makes it more interesting, but it's like kind of the birth of the high fantasy romance-esque obsession. Look, it makes sense why a woman would want to project themselves onto Bella. Two superhuman creatures are fighting over me, and they both love me, and they both would die for me, to the point where our tribes and our families are fighting over her as well. Like, in all honesty, what woman does not want to be fought over? Nothing better than someone feeling protective over you. And I know that's right. Women in fantasy are like this, okay? It's in our DNA. That could be a whole nother topic for another day. So all in all, it's one thing for a love interest to be obsessed with you, to be willing to die for you, to be willing to go to war for you, but then make it two of them. But then, on top of that, it's a vampire and a werewolf. It's a vampire and a werewolf. I really don't think there's much more explaining that I need to do with that, personally. Awkward, lonely, shy, quiet girl who doesn't know how beautiful she is meets melodramatic, handsome, cold, and obsessive vampire, then meets resentful, angsty, and chiseled werewolf. Edward, Bella, and Jacob ran so Betty, August, and James could walk. And that's the truth. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know. I personally hate love triangles. I just find them like icky for my personal taste. Them being vampires and werewolves just adds a whole different dynamic to the triangle. So many different conflicts and so many different motivations. Bella has to essentially die to be with Edward, but she doesn't with Jacob. So the premise is like, what is she more willing to do for the man that she loves more? So in a deeper and more dramatic sense, that plot kind of eats. Do I give up my humanity to be with the one that I love? Or do I stay human? Do I stay myself and not have to change myself to be with somebody that I could love? Ew, that was a bar. It goes hard. It kind of goes hard. Now, you want to know what I would personally do if there was an obsessed vampire coming through my window to stare at me when I was sleeping that looked like my boyfriend? Let me show you. The two love interests, Jacob and Edward, have this ultra commitment to Bella. Edward is a vampire, so when he falls in love, it's unwavering and unyielding. It can't be changed. And then the werewolves have an involuntary imprinting, which imprinting is definitely a writing choice, but regardless, both of them deliver a story with two men that can never physically and biologically fall out of love. Which makes this love triangle even more complex because there's physical elements into it that are unavoidable, unpreventable, can't be changed. There's also a part in the story where Bella enters this sort of like era of like depression. You know, the one scene in Twilight where she's sitting in the chair and the seasons are flashing in front of her through the window. And this happens while Edward is like away. Unfortunately, it is so teenage girl relatable. An entire mental break from reality because your boyfriend left town is so me. It's so me coded. And to heighten this love triangle and make you want to pick a side, a part of that depression was also, at least in the books, Bella she had the fear of aging, which is also teenage girl relatable. She didn't want to grow older than Edward since he was like stuck at 17, but was still 100 years old. Just to point out that he was 100 years old and she was 17, I believe. If you have at least read the books, I think it's very clear that it was written by somebody entering her middle-aged years. And I think that's why so many middle-aged women like Twilight, because you get to kind of relive your teenage years again written by somebody that's not a teenager. Virtually the only reason that Bella wants to be a vampire is so that her and Edward can be together and she won't grow older than him. So whole point is to be essentially stuck in your teenage years. And New Moon is the movie where she's like kind of depresso. Even a few moments in the books in the movie where she's a little like suicidal, like wanting to off herself. And it gets a little darkened in the dumps, to be honest with you. She puts her life in danger several times. So many times. Purposely, like actual self-harm. Which is preposterous, but that's neither here or there. But you get to feel this sense of danger as a reader, as a movie watcher, viewer, without actually being in danger. It's a thrill type feeling. It's like the one thing that keeps the already hormonally charged and dramatic story like flowing. It's like the catalyst of like, is she gonna be in danger here or is she gonna be in more danger here? What are the what are the stakes? But she was just so obsessed with Edward that it was just inevitable that it was going to be him from the very beginning. I think like Jacob is more like hot and intense and like passionate, But Edward, on the other hand, was consumed completely by Bella. It was, I want to die if I don't have you, and that was literally the plot of one of the movies. He went to kill himself because he thought she was dead, but he was like, if I can't have you, I don't want to be alive anymore, or partially alive since he's technically dead. So a teenager throughout this story, throughout this love triangle, makes life or death decisions, literally, while two beautiful men fight over her, are in love with her, while an angry vampire ruler and his henchmen are after said teenager and her love triangle. So it's like the love triangle's got their problem, and then we've got another conflict that hates all of them. So then said love triangle has to stop being pouty, whiny little babies, or else the vampire ruler people are going to kill them. The love triangle is the main catalyst of the entire story. Twilight does not exist without the love triangle. That is essentially the entire point of it. Yes, they're vampires and werewolves. Yes, that makes it even more interesting and complex and in a different take of the trope. But love triangle is just the entire point, essentially. Side note, if I were Edward and my partner was doing things that Bella did with Jacob while he was with me, like at their wedding, you're gonna stand there and let your new wife, as of, I don't know, approximately 30 minutes, go slow dance with another man in the forest. At their wedding, bro. At their wedding. Letting that slide is bizarre. Bizarre. I digress because I'm getting really worked up about it, so I'm gonna move on. The way the films are color blocked, with the schemes and the undertones, the blues, the greens, the sad, the mopey, I love it. It's so camp. It's so sad girl coded. Like the peak of autumn, school starting back, we got the rain, we're depressed, we're obsessed, we're in love. Come on. The soundtrack is also absolutely impeccable. And in my opinion, it's one of the greatest parts of the movie. If there's one thing that they got right, it was the music that they chose. The feeling overall that it evokes, the music and the general essence of the film, it's moody and dark and gloomy. Teenage angst in a nutshell. There's something about the general visual ambience of the movies and how it correlates directly to how Bella's feeling or like course of action that the characters are taking. They visually aced that feeling with the tones and the setting, and they did it perfectly. In my opinion. Like, there's nothing that I would like more than to sit in my bed with some nice warm coffee, maybe with a little sweet treat, and watch Twilight and binge all of them. It's just a seasonal thing. I think a lot of that has to do with the essence of how it is visually. It's appealing, it's aesthetic. And to close off why people love Twilight so much is the fact that it's not realistic. The most realistic part of Twilight is the teenagers making teenager-like decisions. It's a fun little escape from reality. Shoot me. Sorry that I want to pretend that I'm in Forks, Washington, and I'm a loner girl, and this really obsessed man that's beautiful that looks like my boyfriend wants me, and I'm not going to turn him down. Okay? That's why I think it's so entertaining, because it's so preposterous. It's so unlike anything that would ever happen. Just take away the fact of them being vampires and werewolves. The writing, the way that things fall into place, it's just the preposterous nature of the conflicts at hand and like what's at stake, mixed with the idiotic characters, I have no idea what they're doing, is what makes it so entertaining. It's all nuts. Absolutely bonkers. So weird and grotesque and stupid, but also deep at certain times in a weird way. And it shows that love can be worth dying for, I guess, in some situations. There's so many things to take away from it, even though it's weird. I personally love Twilight. I think that it's so enjoyable to watch. I crack up every single time that I'm watching it. Twilight is timeless. Just like medium wash jeans, it's never going to go out of style, and it's always going to be around. There's always going to be obsessed girls with Twilight. It's inevitable. That's it for today, though, guys. I hope you enjoy what you saw. Twilight will forever be a feeling, an emotion, a mindset, will always be in my rotation. Truly. Let me know what you thought. I'd be more than happy to chat in the comments about it. Deuces!